Vārijova thale khitto, okamokataubbhato, Pariphandatidaṃ cittaṃ, māradheyyaṃ pahātave. Now, before we go on and write up a little translation here, I want to mention an even newer Pali policy that we're going to adhere to, and that is we're not really going to discuss any of the grammar. I feel like I've put it all in these notes, and they're going to be in the description, even if you don't see them all on screen, and I'll, hopefully they'll show up there too. But they'll all be in the description. And if that isn't clear, if it's still not clear how everything's fitting together, hopefully we address that in the video. But if that's not clear, please leave a message in the comments, and we will, I'll do my best to clarify it there. Or some other person or other people who are more knowledgeable can weigh in on that. And it doesn't take many, doesn't take much to be more knowledgeable in Pali than me. Okay, so we're going to start here. Now, one thing about this, I'll just point out, if you've watched many of these videos on the Dhammapada, you'll know probably by now that when you get this va, good chance it's a simile, and it is. So, for now, I'm going to put the simile first. We're not making a formal translation. We're just seeing how this fits together first. I think if you made a formal translation, you could even start in this second line, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So, this first part's kind of interesting, and I did write this up here, but I do want to talk about it a little bit. Vārijova. So this is just like, and varījo is two words. It's put it down here. Jo means born of or from, and it's related to our word generation. To generate, it's janati in Pali. And varī is water. So born, just like one born of water. And this is masculine here, masculine nominative singular. And that's going to match here in a minute. So the point here is that lots of things could be born of water, right? And the commentary tells us that it's maccha, which is a fish. The Pali English Dictionary mentions that it could also be a lotus. Lotuses are born in water too. But so when I first read that, I thought it might have been lotus. It's not. And it doesn't really make sense if by the time you even, get to these next two words here. So just like one born of water, or just like a fish, and, we'll put it just like a fish. Now, we're losing a little bit of that, we're not having, we're giving the meaning, we're weakening the image there just a little, but I think it's fine. Just like a fish, and we're going to skip over here. This is another, these, in this case, these O's are all going together. Just like a fish, thrown, we might just say thrown down upon or thrown up on. We're getting to that in a minute. Thrown, I'm anticipating something here. Thale, thrown upon dry ground. Probably with a space there. Thrown upon dry ground. This next little thing, little bit tricky in my opinion. And it seems like it's been taken different ways. I think I'll give you just kind of the literal thing. And I think that's basically how a lot of translations take it. Apparently, Buddhaghosa took this first okam as a contraction of udakam for water. But I think we're going to stick with just this this more basic meaning. So oka can mean a resting place. And it happens here twice. Okam, okata. And this this second one, again, I know I'm trying not to use much in the way of grammatical terminology. It's ablative. It just means from. So, and here, this is probably even the destination, and we're going to talk about it like here. So, and I've mangled that. I'm not even going to edit it. So let's skip here to ubbhato. Ubbhato is drawn out, pulled out, thrown out, or up on. So again, we have this idea of this fish taken out of water, and it's kind of pulled out from like a resting place. And then I think we would have to understand to a resting place. So I think the idea is like going from one shelter to another, one house, dwelling, resting place, not finding a home, kind of this back and forth thing maybe. So I leave that with you there. So just like a fish thrown upon dry ground, maybe we could even say, I don't know, this a little freer, shifting from place to place. And that maybe that weakens it a little bit, but we see moving around. And so what is just like a fish? Idaṃ cittaṃ. This mind. Now, I will just say one thing here. This little I, you might expect this to be long. Those of you who are kind of paying attention, two I's have come together here. But what's happened is because of the meter, one of them has been ejected. In some editions, I think you'll see this printed like that, really showing that the I is missing. So this mind, that takes care of this, and then pariphandati is to tremble, quiver, throb. So this mind moves all around, and that's what we were talking about. That was noted in verse 33. This mind, maybe we could just say moves all around. And then this one, pahātave, this is the infinitive from pahātave, to give up, abandon, let go of. Get rid of. Let's say to get rid of. I think the idea is not only is the mind moving around, but it's moving around to get rid of, to abandon marādheyyaṃ, to abandon like the realm, or like being under the realm, or being in the realm, or under the sway of, to get rid of, like maybe we could say to get rid of being in the realm of māra. And of course, māra is personified. We could keep it as death. So now this is always an experiment. I hope that this has so far been kind of clear. And this is, we could make this a little nicer in English, but I think this gives us the meaning. If we start here at the end, I just want to mention that māra is death, but it doesn't just mean to be rid of like our physical body's death. Really, death as change is happening all the time. In this sense, māra can be taken to mean, and even marādheyyaṃ can be taken to mean samsara. Everything that is not nirvana is marādheyyaṃ, basically. And keep in mind, it is the Buddha's teaching is, if you wanted to put it into, and this may not be that helpful, but if you were a Gnostic, you would say that the Buddha is a Gnostic revealer. He's giving us this teaching, and he's wanting us to have this Gnostic experience, right? He wants us to touch the unconditioned, to have an experience of that in order to break free of this realm of samsara, which is endless cycles. It just goes on. It had no beginning. It will have no end unless we have this experience and can bring an end to birth and death, and consequently, of course, suffering, old age, suffering. All of that is what's being talked about here when the Buddha or Buddhists talk about māra. It's not simply death. It is everything that we experience and can think of. So that is the goal. I want to pose a question here, and maybe should have done that at the beginning, or at least hinted that I would. Here's my question to you, dear listener. When we have a simile, how do we know how far to take it? Let's put it that way. Of course, this is poetry, and it is not mathematics. It's not a science. We're not trying to measure out like a dose of medicine for someone where too much might be extremely harmful. I mean, it's possible if we misunderstand the teaching that we could be harmed to a certain extent. But the point that I'm trying to make here in a very or non-succinct manner is that ambiguity is very often present in any sort of communication, certainly poetry, poetic teachings about things that are not, as the Buddha says of the Dharma, it's very subtle. It's not easy to perceive. So the question is, how, when we're comparing this mind, and remember, it's heart and mind, this heart-mind complex to a fish out of water, how far do we take the simile? Is it simply that we understand that the mind is quivering and that it's not stable and that it's fickle, and but that's the point, like the mind and the way it moves and is restless? Is that the image, or is part of the image to say that the mind has a home and it's not in its proper home right now? I'm going to leave that one with you, dear listener. And I think especially if you, I would say, when I entered into Buddhism, my gateway was Zen for sure, and maybe reading like Bodhidharma and Huangpo. And, there, of course, they talk about mind a lot, and they're using this word mind actually to talk about something that maybe the Buddha would use the word nibbana for, nirvana, or maybe they would also say Buddha nature or something like that. So it's just interesting to think that cittaṃ, in some, at least I think to some writers, of course they would be writing in Chinese, so it would be Shin, maybe. I can't pronounce Chinese. But I think we noted before that, the Chinese character that's used for this, which is kind of has the meaning of heart, the idea that could mean a particular individuated consciousness, or it could mean consciousness as a way of standing for nirvana. At least that's how I take that. So again, dear listener, I leave that to you. I would be interested to hear what you have to say concerning that.